Hello, welcome back. This is Brett from Love That's in the Belfry. I'm here to do a very, I don't know, maybe it's a different video, I don't know, but I'm here to do a video for you. I'm going to talk about a series that happened in the early to mid 2000s that was created by Mick Garris. This was a show called Masters of Horror, and I have at least season 1, volume 1, and I have season 1, volume 2. Now, the interesting thing about this show was the episodes were, it was an anthology series to start off, but these were almost introduced as mini movies. Like, basically each episode was about an hour, maybe a little longer, but they were advertised as mini movies. And the cool thing about it was they kind of did have the pacing of, you know, most movies. And now this is a very interesting concept, and this features a lot of really famous horror directors: John Carpenter, Dario Argento, John Landis, a lot of people you can count that, you know, you've probably seen a cool horror movie from and didn't realize that, like, oh, this director did that movie. Like, oh, you know, this guy did American Werewolf in London, John Landis, or whatever. But I gotta say, at least of all the ones I've seen here, I'm not sure if they did release a official season 2 on DVD, because at the time I got these, I worked for an FYE, and we had someone come in with these, and we were able to buy them off of them. And I thought it was extremely interesting. And the guy who was selling them, he was like, yeah, I really like the packaging and everything in this and the concept of it, but a lot of the movies themselves aren't that great. Either way, I was like, I'm a collector, I would like to buy these. So I ended up buying them, and I gotta say, the guy was pretty right about it. Even though you have a lot of legendary horror directors involved in this show, and a lot of legendary, like, horror, you know, type actors, like Robert Englund is in one of these, it really isn't that great. It's not that memorable. I haven't watched, like, a number of these in quite a while. Really the only ones that are some of them do have memorable moments, but as a whole, they don't really wow me. I'll talk about one that I absolutely love, and it's actually like one of my favorite things that he's ever done. I'll get to that in just a second though. But I would say the most memorable ones come from season 1, volume 2, and that is one called Jennifer, I believe, and that was done by Dario Argento. And the concept of this, the reason I remember it, is because it's about this girl named Jennifer, and pretty much this guy takes her into his care. It's this lady who has basically a gorgeous body, but a really, really ugly and mangled face. And the reason I remember this is because it eventually leads to them, you know, having sex a number of times, and I'm like, it's kind of weird. I don't know. But yeah, like, Jennifer as a character, like, she doesn't even really talk. She just kind of, like, whimpers and stuff. At least this is what I remember from this. But that stood out to me because it was just like, you thought it would have been like just like this one-off thing where it's like, you know, the guy like had a moment of weakness, he had sex with her, but it's like ongoing. And like Jennifer, I think, also wanted to have sex with him like all the time. And I don't remember how it wraps up, but that's what I remember from Jennifer. And I don't remember the the name of this other one, but it was directed by John Landis, who did American Werewolf in London. Great movie. He directed this one. I think it was called The Deer Lady or something, but pretty much it's this lady who doesn't really say much at all, and but like there's a lot of nudity involved, and then but she basically is just like a deer in human form. I don't know, it was super odd. And like I like out there stuff, but even this for me, it's like if it's just everything's over sexualized, I mean, to me it's kind of just like, okay, is this just supposed to be pandering towards, you know, perverts or something? I don't know, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I'll just leave it at that. Those are the ones that I remember because just of that particular stuff, just how weird it was. But I just want to go and show, I want to talk about one that I love, and I go back to it periodically because it's just a fascinating concept. And that is one called John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns. And John Carpenter, obviously, director of Halloween, Escape from New York, a lot of really great movies, The Thing, you know, he ended up directing one of these episodes, and it's called Cigarette Burns. And it's pretty, like, the basic concept of this episode is you have Norman Reedus as the main character, you know, the guy who plays Daryl from The Walking Dead, you know, of Walking Dead fame. He plays a guy who was a drug addict, and his girlfriend passed away from an overdose, and him and his girlfriend, basically like the girlfriend's father pretty much gave them money to take over this theater, this like really nice theater and everything. She had an overdose, so he's just trying to run this theater by himself, but he's having a lot of financial troubles and everything. And he ends up getting a call from this one guy played by Udo Kier. You know, he's a very interesting person, and you know, a lot of stuff I've seen him in, he just has this interesting charisma. But he basically invites Norman Reedus' character over to his house, and he tells him he wants to get a copy of this one film. I forget the exact phrase, but it's the title of the film is in Latin, but it translates to the absolute end of the world. And the film, that it was shown at like a film festival only once, and it was famous because when it was shown, it made all the people in the theater go absolutely insane and do the craziest stuff, and everyone basically ended up getting killed. And so the movie was completely like tried to be like erased, and there's only like one or two known actual copies of the film. And so this rich guy basically offers this big fee to Norman Reedus, or Daryl from The Walking Dead. I honestly forget his character's name because it's like, you know, this was before Walking Dead fame, but like when you just see him, you're like, it's Daryl. But he offers him a big reward if he can find a copy of this movie, because the guy's fascinated by it, and he's this big collector, and he just wants to have a copy of this film. And it goes from there. And honestly, the pacing is great, and the payoff to the episode is really great as well. And it's just, you know, this is one of those things that, you know, even if you aren't crazy about the episode, you know, the concept itself, you're like, that is an awesome concept. At least to me, I was like, when I heard that, I'm like, I'm hooked, I gotta watch that. And it's a really great episode. So, I mean, if you take anything away from this video, check out John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns. And so I at least want to show the inside of the packaging here. And being a collector, you like physical media. And actually, a lot of, you know, here, it has all the synopsis of all the episodes. It has even special features for each episode. And, you know, it's on its own disc. So it's, you know, a little over an hour runtime for each episode. And then it has, like, I remember watching a good amount of features for each one. It has a lot of behind the scenes stuff and with the directors and everything. And yeah, even it's got Cigarette Burns here, and the other disc is Dreams in The Witch House, which is actually directed by Stuart Gordon, and he did Reanimator and From Beyond, and I love those movies. But I remember this one being a bit silly, but at the same time, that was kind of Stuart Gordon's style with a lot of his movies. So, but it's not something I'd be like, you go out of your way to watch it. So, but yeah, on the inside, as you can see, you know, it's got, I don't know, I like the cool design, and I like the fact that this opens like this. And let me just make sure that everything looks good. Yeah, so, oh yeah, you have one called Chocolate. Yeah, but I love the packaging of this. And even though I don't really care about a bunch of these, I might revisit them one day, but I just really like the packaging. And, you know, this is just a cool collector's item to have, honestly. And this is one of the few times where the sleeve actually matters to have, because, you know, you have the actual cover, you know, on the front of the sleeve, and it is convenient. I don't like those sleeves that they sell a lot of, you know, DVDs and Blu-rays now, where it's just an outer sleeve and then on the inside the DVD or Blu-ray is the exact same cover. It's like, I don't really get the appeal to that, but that's just a side note. So I do want to show the Season 1 Volume 2 here. It is a slight different shade of color. Actually, it might be the same. Yeah, it's just a slight change of color for the Season 1 Volume 1 and then Season 1 Volume 2. So you can at least differentiate a little bit of those. Yeah, and then on the inside, yeah. Okay, so it's Dear Woman. That's what it was called, the one I was talking about earlier. But yeah, Jennifer, and then Dear Woman, and then got to show the inside here, because it's awesome. Yeah, I think it looks good. I mean, they don't look, obviously, perfect, because they're not perfectly aligned, but yeah, I don't know. It's just super cool. Great item to have. So, you know, if I had friends, I would love to show this off to them, but I guess I got YouTube, so I'm going to show it off to you guys through a video. And so, before I wrap up the video there, they actually did, for this TV show, they did release a soundtrack album, because they had a lot of artists and bands contribute songs to this TV show. And I, of course, have the soundtrack as well. Some of them were songs that bands and artists have already released that were on their albums, but a good amount of these were songs that were either B-sides or songs that were just kind of like given, you know, to use for this TV show. And because this was the early to mid 2000s, this was a, you know, like a lot of emo bands, post-hardcore bands, and like metalcore bands were on the rise. So I guess they tried to take advantage of that and have a lot of those bands and artists contribute songs to this TV show. If I'm being honest though, like while that was my jam, like early to mid 2000s, like middle school to high school, like that was my stuff. Like the emo stuff, the metalcore stuff. And some of that is still my stuff to this day, you know, or, you know, it's funny that, you know, pop punk is now considered dad rock, but anyways. But yeah, like you have bands like, yeah, you had like Andrew WK was on this, you had Rise Against, From Autumn to Ashes, Matchbook Romance, Avenged Sevenfold, but yeah, if I'm being honest, I listened to this recently, there's a lot of not that great songs on here. I can only count on one hand, like, songs I liked out of these two CDs that were on here. I would say Alkaline Trio, they have a song called We Can Never Break Up, and that was a B-side of theirs. And Alkaline Trio is one of my favorite bands, and that's actually a legit good song, and that's on disc 2 of this. And Every Time I Die contributed a song. Keith the Musk, I thought that was a really good song. And Every Time I Die is not like a band I'm really into, but every time I listen to them, I really like their stuff. And I'm trying to see, oh, there's a Shadows Fall song on here called This Is My Own, which I never heard anywhere outside of this first disc here. But I like Shadows Fall as well. But yeah, it's like a lot of those type of bands are on here, but it's like, man, a lot of their songs really aren't good that were contributed to this. That's probably why it was like a lot of B-sides or just like songs that were disposable that were like thrown to this. Yeah, there's a Rise Against song, but I honestly don't remember really being like, oh, that was good. Yeah, like Thursday, Mastodon's on here, The Bled, Scary Kids Scaring Kids. Yeah, Armor for Sleep, and I listened to Armor for Sleep back in the day as well. But yeah, like none of these really like stuck out. It was like, yeah, like those 3 songs I mentioned were the only ones that really I was like, yeah, like those are good songs. So this is something that I remember finding this on Amazon, like unopened, pretty cheap. And now I'm kind of understanding why it was pretty cheap, because the songs just aren't that good on here. But I don't know, I just thought it was pretty interesting. And this is something like, you know, when people talk about anthology series like Tales from the Crypt or Tales from the Dark Side, American Horror Story, or like, you know, those anthology TV shows, The Twilight Zone. Not a lot of people mention Masters of Horror, and it's probably a good reason why, because, you know, a lot of the stuff wasn't that memorable, and if it was memorable, it just wasn't that good in general. But if you take anything away from this video, definitely check out John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns. And I actually do know that at least the Masters of Horror stuff, they actually released some of these like movies kind of individually. I remember seeing like individual copies of certain ones, and there are certain ones that were part of the TV show, but they just didn't release on like a season 2, because there were 2 seasons of the show, but I only have season 1, volume 1 and 2. I couldn't find a season 2. And I know there's a good amount of like individual ones that they've released just by themselves. So maybe they were just like kind of lost cause to do physical media for season 2. But I know I've heard there's one called Imprint that's pretty good, but I have not seen that. But yeah, I guess I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for enticing me into listening to me talk about this kind of forgotten TV show. But yeah, John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns is a legit good episode or mini movie out of this TV series. I don't know, maybe you could find some of these episodes pretty easily, and if you're just like, I don't really know what else to watch horror-wise, maybe you could check it out and form your own opinion, but at least in my opinion, it's not the greatest. So, thank you all for tuning in to Love Bats in the Belfry. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, and, you know, to stay tuned for more videos on our channel, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.